It was certainly no coincidence that the Passion of Jesus took place the week of Passover. And the early church quickly understood that Jesus fulfilled all of the symbolism of the Passover meal. And I think, as the great rabbi, the Apostle Paul said, we as believers in Yeshua can now cleanse out the old leaven that we could be a new lump, because Christ, Yeshua, the Messiah, our Passover lamb, has been sacrificed for us.
Hello, New Life family. Thank you for tuning into this video. We want to help you thoughtfully approach Holy Week. And one of the ways that we can do that is to help you deepen your understanding of what was happening during Holy Week by getting a better handle on the Jewish underpinnings of our faith. And I know of no better way to do that than to talk to my friend and our fellow New Life member, Harvey Katzen, who is an authority on the Jewish roots of the Christian faith. Harvey, welcome. It's good to be with you.
Hi, Ted. Thanks for having me today. Appreciate it.
I'm delighted you could be with us. Hey, for those of you, for those at New Life who may not know you, Harvey, can you tell us a little about yourself and maybe a little bit about your religious background?
Sure. Again, thanks for having me with you to not only talk about the upcoming Jewish holiday of Passover, but even more so about the Jewish roots of our Christian faith in Jesus, who is the Jewish Messiah. I was actually born into an Orthodox Jewish home in Brooklyn, New York, and I grew up in a neighborhood that was all Jewish. My friends were Jewish, all of our neighbors were Jewish. And for the most part, we as children were very protected from the influences of the outside non-Jewish world. I'm the son of an immigrant Jewish parents who fled to the United States before the war. My father was from Lithuania. My mother was from Russia. And as young children, they were able to escape the Jewish persecution in their respective countries and come to a place where they could practice their Jewish faith and their Jewish culture, a place where they could identify as Jews in relative safety. By the time I was 7, I was enrolled in Cheder, in Hebrew school, where I would learn the Hebrew language and the basic tenets of the Judaism that we clung to so tightly. When I was 13, I became bar mitzvah, literally a son of the commandment. Bar mitzvah, as I think everybody knows, is that great rite of passage when a Jewish boy becomes a man in the eyes of God, and he is now held accountable for keeping all of the 613 laws that are given to us as Jews in the Hebrew Scriptures. But of all the things that we learned in Hebrew school and all of the things that we were taught by our parents, at the very top of the list, it was that Jews don't believe in Jesus. We were taught that Jesus is for Gentiles and he's not for Jews. He's for the Goyim. He's for the nations. And today, Jews are still waiting for their Messiah, a Redeemer who will one day come to the Jewish people, an anointed one who will gather all Jews and restore them to the observance of the Torah law, and then finally bring peace to the whole world. And even with that upbringing, even through a Jewish culture and tradition that continues to reject Jesus to this day, the God of Abraham so graciously brought this Jew into his kingdom back in 1979. And it was through the life and the death and the resurrection of Yeshua, of Jesus, who's the Jewish Messiah.
Well, thank you, Harvey. It's a great story and full of God's providence and wonderful sovereignty. So we're approaching what Christians have traditionally called Holy Week. But at the same time, the Jews are approaching their annual holiday of Passover, which begins on the evening of Saturday, March 27th. Can you tell our people, Harvey, a little bit about Passover, what it is, and what its significance is to the Jews?
Well, the significance is really great. For over 3,000 years, Passover has continued to be the most celebrated and the most observed holiday in perhaps all of Jewish tradition. Judaism is a religion of remembering, and every year in the spring, Passover commemorates what is perhaps the most important event in Jewish history. It's that story of the Exodus and the redemption of the Jewish people from slavery in Egypt. As Jewish families come together at Passover and they'll share in the annual Seder meal, they remember and they teach the next generation about the events that delivered them as God's people after 400 years of bondage in Egypt. And you know, when we Jews would celebrate the Passover each year, tradition would teach us that in every generation we were told to think of ourselves as having personally been freed from Egypt. So the significance of Passover for Jews cannot be overstated. It is the most celebrated Jewish holiday on the annual calendar of appointed days for the Jewish people around the world.
The Exodus and the redemption from Egypt of the Jewish people is really the greatest sort of the gospel event of the Old Testament, isn't it? So how is Passover, Harvey, now historically linked to the Passion of Jesus? When that all came down, 2,000 years ago, and how does an understanding of Passover help Christians today better understand what was happening during Holy Week, like at the Last Supper and on the cross of Jesus itself?
That's a great question, and that's such a great question for us who are in the body of Messiah. You know, historically, Passover is the account of God's redemption of the nation of Israel from bondage and slavery in Egypt. But if we look more closely, we can really see how God wove into this very fabric, this story, a picture of even a far greater redemption for all the world, from the Egypt of sin and through our true Passover lamb, who is Jesus the Messiah. You know, one of the last earthly acts of Jesus was his own celebration of the Passover. Gathering his disciples in that small upper room in Jerusalem. He led them in a Seder celebration, much like Jews around the world will do in the next few days. He said to them, "I have earnestly desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer." He passed them the same foods as Jews will do in Passover this year, the matzah, the unleavened bread, the wine, the bitter herbs. And it was there in that celebration of the deliverance from Egyptian bondage that Jesus revealed to them and to us the mystery of God's plan for the ultimate redemption through his broken body and through his shed blood. So when we meet together often as believers in Yeshua and we come as his body to the Lord's table, as we do monthly at New Life, we come to remember the blood of the Lamb that was slain on that very first Passover. And as John the Baptizer, the last Old Testament prophet, said, he said, "Behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world." You know, I've often said this when I taught at New Life, that the rabbis would always tell you that coincidence is not a kosher word. And it was certainly no coincidence that the Passion of Jesus took place the week of Passover. And the early church quickly understood that Jesus fulfilled all of the symbolism of the Passover meal. And I think, as the great rabbi, the Apostle Paul, said, we as believers in Yeshua can now cleanse out the old leaven that we could be a new lump, because Christ, Yeshua, the Messiah, our Passover lamb, has been sacrificed for us. And then he tells all believers in Jesus to keep the festival of the Passover. Every believer in Jesus to keep the festival of Passover, but to do it not with the old bread that is leavened with malice and with wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and of truth.
It really is an amazing story of redemption, and it points up again, doesn't it, the seamlessness of the story between the Old Testament and the New Testament, and the fact that we as Gentile believers, I as a Gentile believer, have been grafted into the tree that is Israel, that is God's people, and now together we celebrate the true, one true Passover lamb, Jesus. Harvey, thank you. Thank you for your story. Thank you for helping us understand Passover and the Passion of Jesus more biblically. And I'm sure it will help all of us as we reflect and meditate this week on what Jesus has done for us. And as we close out this video, I want to encourage you to come to our Good Friday evening service. That'll be at 6:30 at New Life. And then, of course, the celebration of the resurrection. And we will be eating the Lord's Supper together at our Easter Sunday service, which is at the normal time of 9:30. And remember, too, our challenge that to all of us to be praying for and thinking about and ultimately inviting two people or two families that you know that are not believers to our Easter Sunday service, so that they can hear, maybe for the first time, this great story of our Passover lamb, Jesus. So thank you, Harvey. Thank you. And thanks. You're welcome. And thank you for everybody for tuning in.